Morning everybody, welcome to Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repair. So we are going to take a look at what you do when you got a leaky gas tank. Now not every leaky gas tank on a chainsaw needs to be dealt with this way, but this is a late model 925. This is Chance's that he sent to me, and you can see that somebody already had a problem with it because they put some sort of a goop that's semi-flexible over the front here now. Apparently it hasn't leaked, but this isn't the most aesthetically pleasing solution. Now I'm not going to peel that off of there. If Chance wants to, he can go right ahead. I'm afraid it would take paint. I think we're stuck with that kind of cosmetic damage as it is. But we can do a better fuel tank repair than that. You guys have probably heard me talk about it before. This is called Red-Kote. I've used it. It does work. Now, I don't recommend on an older tank, if it was meant to have a gasket, that you just slap it together with some silicone and then blast some of this in there. I don't think that's a good idea. But on a tank that is meant to have a gasket, you put the gasket in there if you want an extra layer of protection. Yeah, this is good stuff. Is it required? No. But this tank was a bonded tank. This isn't meant to come apart. You can see the powder coat's baked right over the top of it. There was a liner in there. It was black. And there's still a little bit of it left, but not very much. So my guess is this saw sat with some sort of alcohol-based fuel in it for a while, and it destroyed that liner as that fuel broke down. So the can comes with some really clear instructions. I'm not going to go through everything, but you know, some of the more obvious stuff. Empty the fuel from the tank. Really, man, that's amazing. I guess you got to make it as simple as you can for some of the folks that don't have a lot of gray matter. But remove your sending unit hoses, all that other stuff that you don't want coated. If you've got rust, you want to get as much of that out as you can. This is talking about like an automotive fuel tank. They're saying to tap the side and then get it broken loose. Here's the one that'll make some people cringe. Clean the tank with a water-soluble detergent or degreaser. I mean, most of us don't put water in our gas tanks, but in order to get the old oil, especially in one of these things, you've got to use some sort of a solvent that'll get rid of the oil, but is not going to leave a residue behind that's going to interfere with this stuff. No, I've done it, and this one was washed out that way. But here's the next part. Make sure the tank is completely dry before continuing. Don't put a torch on it. Yeah, I know I've heard of people that have done that. I mean, I know you can weld a tank in theory if you put it full of water, all that jazz, but again, with a chainsaw, we don't need to worry about that. Make sure the tank is dry before continuing. The use of a blower to circulate air will help a lot, and that is true. So what I like to do, I'm going to skip a few steps in here, or some of their language, and tell you what I do. Hose that thing out, clean it out good, get all the loose debris that I can possibly get out, and then take your air nozzle, blow out the worst of the water, let it sit for a few hours. If you're in a big hurry, that sucks, but it is what it is. If it's cold, get your little fan out, turn your tank down, aim the fan at the fuel nozzle, the fuel neck, excuse me. That'll help. But that's not where you end. Then you go to your can of acetone. You pour some in there. Now, these guys, again, are talking about an automotive tank. They're saying a pint of acetone and sloshing it around thoroughly and pouring it out, and then doing that again. Now, this is a quart, so you'd need to use an entire can if you were doing a big automotive tank. The reality is this little tank, you only need a little bit off the top. And you probably don't need to do it twice, unless you've got some really stale, nasty old crapola in there. This one wasn't like that. I put in, a little bit, sloshed it around real good. Now, you want to be careful. Acetone attacks rubber, so you don't want to put your good fuel cap in there and expose your duckbill valve to it. Either use an old fuel cap or put on a pair of gloves, cover it. We had the fuel hose out. This one was all jacked up anyway, so No big deal there. And yeah, if a little bit sloshes out of that hole, yeah, whoop-de-doo, it's okay. Just make sure you get that whole tank good and cleaned with the acetone and dump it out. If what comes out looks reasonably clear, doesn't look like it's pulling a whole lot, you're probably good to go. If it's a real ugly mess, you know, still real discolored, like fuel and oil and all that stuff, go ahead and do it a second time around. What can it hurt? But just got to be a judgment call. Each saw is going to be a little bit different. So on this one was enough. So in theory, you're damn near ready to rock and roll at that point, but you still got to let the acetone evaporate. Now you can put the fan on it and speed that way up. I was going to do that, but then I found my old can of Red-Kote had gone bad. Now I want to say it was good 2.5, maybe 3 years old. So that's not bad. I had used it down to about that point. I don't feel upset about that. This can, there's enough here to do probably 10 saws, maybe more. And I got my money's worth out of that old can. So again, I don't feel bad about that. But, so I took it and I just turned it upside down and put it in my wood pile. Let it sit there. Sat there for a good 5-6 days. And then when I just flipped it over, a lot of that old lining that had started going bad was loose in there because I could hear it rattling around. So went to the air hose, blew all that garbage out, and blew a little bit more just to make sure, because you don't want a bunch of loose debris in there. That's going to interfere with how this stuff works. But at this point, we're pretty well good to go. Now, I want to clean the top here just a little bit because I don't want to risk contaminating the fuel or the Red-Kote that doesn't get used. Because that's the neat thing about this product. You can pour off what doesn't get used and then come back and use it again sometime. It goes right back in the can. And I know that breaks the rules of, you know, painters and putting, you know, contaminated paint back in and all that sort of stuff, but if you've done your homework and you've prepped your tank well, you're not really contaminating it with anything. Because again, I did that with that old can, and like I say, I did probably 10 fuel tanks with it. So what you're going to do is pour enough in here that you can roll it around and get everything nice and coated. Now, if you have an easy way to tape off your fuel hose entrance point, you probably ought to do that. That would be a nightmare, and you might say, well, why don't you jam something in there? Then the Red-Kote's going to stick to that, and whatever I jam in there as I take it out, it's going to tear that liner. So I'm just going to let it be. It's part of why I didn't clean this up out here. This is still oily, greasy, and there's some old silicone laying there. Great. That means the Red-Kote isn't going to stick to the paint and rip it off. I'll be able to peel it off very easily. And what I will do is attempt to razor blade right up to the hole so that the grommet, when I install that, is going to go over that Red-Kote and hold it in place in case it was trying to come loose. You think about the edge of paint, that's where something's going to get underneath and start working it loose. Same thing with this stuff. Ideally what you want is to get good coating out to where, at least to the edge of where your fuel hose and grommet are going to go. And for the tank here, we're going to want to get it to the edge of the fuel cap. If there was enough clearance to coat the threads too, that'd be better, but there isn't. I've tried that and it doesn't really work. You end up having to peel it out of the threads. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to pour it in there, slosh it all around, make sure everything's good coat. Now we're going to turn it upside down and drain all the excess off, because if you let this stuff pool, it's not going to cure properly. And that's the last thing we want to do. But I don't want to let my can sit here wide open while it's draining. This is a cold day. I mean, it's barely, 42, 43 degrees right now, and it's got to be coming up on 10:30 or so, roughly. So anyway, that's where the old Skippy peanut butter jar comes in. Find yourself a clean container that doesn't have a bunch of garbage in it. And I'm going to drain it into this, and then when it's done, if it hasn't congealed, which it won't, I'll pour what's left of this that's good into there, and we'll save it for the next go around. That's enough babbling. Let's actually do it. Now I did realize that I lost my snap-on spout, so I'm going to make a little bit of a mess out of the lip of the can, but that's okay. That's what paper towels are for. Never seen... I guess that's a security lid. There's no way I can get to that. God dang. That's one risk of having stuff shipped through the mail that's considered hazardous. You gotta get into it first. And they clearly didn't want this stuff spilling on the UPS truck. There we go. Alright. Now, let's see. It doesn't say to shake this for an excessively long time. I haven't found anything that separates in it, really. And this stuff, whatever it is pretty stable. Alright. Real trick is going to be pouring it into that saw without making a mess. And I think we're up to the task. Okay. So that's what it should look like. Just a red liquid. Almost candy red. Now this does have a good smell to it, and by good I mean potent. I don't mean sniff it and get high. Make sure your damn garage is ventilated. I've got the back door open, garage doors open. We got airflow moving through here, so we should be good. Now, I got a fear that this is going to be a little messy. It will be down the side of the can, I know that. Again, there's no right or wrong. The more you put in, the easier it's going to be to coat everything. But the more of your material you are potentially contaminating, if you found you had a problem. I'm going to start with that, just based on what I've done with tanks roughly this size before. There we go. Next time I feel like venturing out to Home Depot, I'll make sure to remember, I hope, some more of those paint can spouts. Oregon, yesterday, went to a shelter-in-place for our lovely COVID-19 garbage. Apparently a bunch of really brilliant people in this state decided to go to the coast and overwhelm a bunch of coastal towns this weekend, which resulted in much tighter restrictions. I had taken the kids up to one of the state parks about an hour away, and we were going to spend 4 nights camping. Instead, Sunday afternoon, we got the get the hell out by 1 o'clock Monday notice. So, again, for the folks who chose not to pay attention and follow the governor's request, whether you agree with it or not, that's beside the point. You screwed it up for everybody else. Alright, so you want to work this around and make sure it coats everything, and that includes the top of the tank. But we're going to do that last. I'm trying to get the side right now. And you can't see in here real well. Me trying to give you guys a video shot of this would be pointless. What I'm just doing is trying to make it so that I can't see any color other than just pitch black, because that's what this red is going to look like in there. Again, being a, see that? We got some out of that filler hole. I do see that I want that fuel pipe the hell out of my way. I also don't want to grease my hands up. Not while I'm doing this. Alright. The front of the tank, I can still see a little color below the neck there. There we go. So again, there's nothing scientific about this. You just got to do what you got to do to get full coverage. Remember, these tanks wrap around back under here a little bit. So not only do you want the bottom, you want it where it starts to arc back. So you want to get enough material down there that when you're finally done and you turn this upside down, the material is going to run across all of these walls and drain out the filler neck here. Now, I think we're ready. So, I'm going to end up moving this eventually, because I can't afford to have my whole workbench taken up with one 925, but I want to get this kind of on video for you guys. It's like a catastrophe waiting to happen, but let me get a better camera angle here. There you guys can see it's already draining down into that Skippy peanut butter container quite nicely. And you see how much material's coming out versus what I poured in. So it's going to be it's not a super thick layer that goes in there, but it is very durable as long as you've taken the time to do the prep work. So I will probably let this drain for about another 5 minutes, and then I'm going to turn it back upright. I'm going to dump off whatever I can out of this container back into my can and save that, and then I'm going to turn it upside down again and let it cure for the rest of the time. Now, on a warmer day, you don't have nearly as much dry time, but again, it's cold here. They don't put an actual time estimate on here anymore. Maybe they never did. But they say after about an hour, you can speed up the curing time quite a bit by putting a fan back on it. But they say wait at least an hour before doing that. So that's really how long you're going to want to leave it in the drain position so that you can get all that extra material out of there. The way you tell that it's cured is you sniff it. Now, that sounds stupid, but they say when it's cured, you should be able to put your nose to the opening on the tank, and you don't smell any more solvent at that point. If you still smell it, don't put fuel in there. You don't want to do that yet. So, anyhow, I know there was a lot of rambling in that, but for anybody who's thought about repairing one of these tanks and gone, heck, it's just going to leak, not necessarily. This stuff will seal up to a 32 of an inch penetration. Anything bigger than that, you should really patch it. Now, again, JB Weld will work, and I think it would work quite well if it was then coated with this stuff, with Red-Kote, to keep gasoline from attacking it. It just depends on how bad the damage is to your tank and what it is you're looking at. But anyway, there's a solution. A leaky tank can be partially fixed by Red-Kote. And I'll be danged, folks. Ha! Son of a gun! Check that out. I've got material visible right here. That's Red-Kote. So there was also some kind of damage to the bottom of this saw. In fact, yeah, I'll be danged. I can see the seam is slightly separated right there, so that's interesting. This stuff found its way through. Guess we'll find out if it holds gas.